Carlos King is once again in the spotlight, and somehow, even when the conversation had nothing to do with her, Melody Shari found herself being dragged into the drama. That's right, Mel is once again part of the shade, the discussion, and the debate. So make sure you stick around until the end of this video because I promise you, the way this whole thing unfolds will leave you shocked. You do not want to miss a single detail. So let's get into it. Recently, Carlos King decided to share his thoughts online, and of course, when Carlos speaks, people listen because he is the producer. It's a so-called king of reality TV. He made a statement about reality stars being only as good as their last episode and about fans being the same people who can tear you down just as quickly as they lift you up. Now, on the surface, this may sound like harmless commentary, right? Just some advice about how reality TV works. But here's where it got messy. Even though Carlos never said a specific name, fans in the comments wasted no time bringing up Melody Shari. And once that happened, all of the old drama, shade, and digs came right back into the spotlight. So why is Mel in it? Why is she always the one being mentioned? That's the question we're going to break down together. Here's the thing, Melody has already made it clear that she is moving on. She's announced her departure from filming. It's focused on her businesses like 7th Avenue Beauty, her music, her acting, and her speaking engagements. She even owns her own TV network and continues to expand her empire. She has shown over and over again that she does not need the show to define her. Yet, no matter how much she tries to separate herself, people like Carlos King and his supporters find ways to insert her into conversations that don't even involve her. So, in this video, we're going to talk about what Carlos really meant, how Mel's name got dragged into it, and why this shade is not as innocent as it may seem. Stick with me, because this is where it gets juicy. So Carlos King puts out this message saying that reality stars shouldn't believe the hype, that fans can turn on them, and that you're only as good as your last episode. Now, you and I both know reality stars are human beings, not characters in a script, so when you say something like that, you're reducing them to nothing more than their drama. And this is exactly why Mel left. She was tired of constantly being tied back to Martell Holt, tired of the shade, tired of people refusing to see her as her own person. Because even though she legally changed her name from Holt to Shari, even though she built her own lane, people like Carlos and his fans continued to attach her identity back to her ex-husband. And speaking of Martell Holt, let's not pretend like he hasn't been a huge part of the problem. It's from his cheating scandal with Ariane Curry to the custody battle with Melody. To the public arguments and accusations, Martell has given the show more than enough drama to last a lifetime. But instead of letting Melody move on and create her own storyline, the producers and the fans always wanted to tie her right back to Martell. And that's exactly why people believe Carlos's tweet was shade toward Mel, because she represents the one person who truly walked away and didn't let the show control her. Make sure you keep watching because in a few moments, I'm going to tell you exactly how fans reacted and how Kimmy Scott and Letitia Scott got pulled into this conversation as well. Now, fans in the comments of Carlos's post immediately started naming names. One person specifically said, "Yep, like Melody Holt." And right there, that was enough to start a firestorm. Another fan quickly jumped in to defend Mel, saying, "Stop that. Melody is doing fine business and TV-wise. Looks like her ex-husband is her only problem. If anybody this applies to, it's Kimmy." Now, think about that. Melody's name wasn't even mentioned by Carlos. But people instantly thought of her when he talked about stars being hyped up and forgotten. And that says a lot, because it shows that even the fans can't let Mel live without dragging her name back into drama. This is the exact cycle she has tried to escape. But let's not ignore the hypocrisy here. Carlos made it very clear that he loves Jen, one of the women from Real Housewives of Orange County, and he said the message wasn't about her. So if it wasn't about her, then who was it about? If you're not going to name names, then why? Throw out a vague statement that allows fans to insert whoever they want. Because the truth is, Carlos knows exactly what he's doing. He knows fans will fill in the blanks, and he knows Mel is always a target. And to make it even worse, Carlos has refused for months to acknowledge Melody directly, unless he was absolutely forced to during interviews. And when he finally did, he downplayed her importance and acted like she could come back whenever she wanted. That's not honesty. That's shade disguised as casual commentary. Now let's bring in Kimmy Scott and Letitia Scott, because, their names are always tied to this mess as well. When the fans said that if anyone Carlos's comment applied to it was Kimmy, that was a huge deal. Because Kimmy has caught a lot of heat recently, especially around issues with the kids and her handling of certain situations on the show. People feel like she hasn't been transparent, or that she's been caught in the middle of drama without really taking accountability. And when it comes to Letitia Scott, well, we all know she's been beefing with Melody forever. Miss Wanda, Letitia's mom, also stirs the pot constantly, always finding ways to throw shade at Mel. So even when Mel tries to step back, the Scott family seems determined to keep her name in the conversation. And honestly, that's probably another reason Carlos knows he can always count on Mel being brought up. And then there's Destiny Payton, who once was close to Mel but ended up falling out with her in a very public way. Destiny also found herself struggling to keep her beauty supply store, Madani, afloat, and a lot of fans accused her of not being business-minded. Meanwhile, Mel was securing her businesses, growing her brand, and moving forward. So once again, people compare Mel to others on the cast, and it's clear that no matter what she does, her name is always the standard by which everyone else gets judged. Stick with me, because later in this video, I'll explain how Mel's independence and success outside the show actually threatens producers like Carlos, and why that makes her an even bigger target for shade. Now, let's get back to Ariane Curry, because we can't ignore her role in all of this. Ariane was Martell's longtime mistress, and she has been a constant source of drama for Mel. Even after everything, Ariane has continued to throw shots at Mel online, blaming her, accusing her, and refusing to take accountability for her role in destroying a marriage. But what's interesting is that Ariane never gets the same type of heat from producers like Carlos. She's not brought on the show, she's not really held accountable, and yet Mel is constantly being shaded, even though she was the wife who was betrayed. That's why so many fans are frustrated. It's because it feels like the wrong person keeps getting punished while the people who created the chaos get protected. The reality is, Carlos King's shade about stars being only as good as their last episode is not just general advice, it's a tactic. It's his way of reminding reality stars that they are replaceable, that their value is tied to the show, and that if they walk away, they risk being forgotten. But here's the thing, that doesn't apply to Melody Shari, because Mel already did exactly what every reality star is supposed to do. She used the platform to build her own empire. She launched businesses. She got into acting and singing. She started new ventures, and she created multiple streams of income. She has speaking engagements, property preservation classes, e-commerce classes, and so much more. It's not depending on the show, and that's why she's such a threat. Stick around, because later I'll explain how Carlos's shade reveals his real fear about Mel's independence. But first, let's talk about fan reactions. When fans saw Carlos's tweet and then saw Mel's name being thrown in, they went off. Some people defended Mel, saying she's thriving and doesn't need the show. Others dragged her, saying she wouldn't be relevant without it. And then, of course, the arguments started about Martell, Kimmy, Letitia, and Destiny. People started rehashing old storylines, bringing up the revenge scandal with Martell, the custody battles, the cheating, the fights, and everything in between.